you? Something very chaotic, but anyhow, we have to just do the work. Anyways, see, I'm repeating some of the points which I gave you yesterday. I mean, I'll begin from the very beginning in the area of literary theory, right? As I told you yesterday that if you want to understand literary theory, you need to understand literary criticism also. And I also told you yesterday that everything in literary criticism, it begins with Aristotle. And he wrote a seminal book that is, Politics. Regarding the status of Aristotle, you can say that he was taken like a prophet during the Greek and Roman cultures. Then he was taken like a philosopher during the Middle Ages. And it was during the Renaissance that he was taken like a critic. Fine. Now, if you try to focus on the word criticism, if you go to the origin of the word criticism, it is coming from a Greek verb, kritin. That means to judge. So the word criticism, if you talk about its origin, it has been taken from the word that is a Greek verb, kritin. That means to judge. And one who is skilled in the art of judging is called a kritikos. In the Greek language, critikus. In the Latin language, and a critic in English. Right? So the word criticism, it's coming from a Greek verb, kritin, that means to judge. And one who is skilled in the art of judging is called a kritikos. In the Latin language, a criticus, or kritikos in the Greek language, criticus in the Latin language, and a critic in English. Fine. Now, according to Aristotle, criticism means some standard of judging well. Some standard of judging well. I'm talking about how criticism has been defined by different critics beginning from Aristotle up to the present day, during the 20th century. Fine. So for Aristotle, criticism means the standard of judging well. If you judge something with some standard, then it becomes criticism. Right? Then Dryden was the first person who used the word criticism in print for the very first time. In England, it was Dryden who used the word criticism in print for the very first time. And according to Dryden, criticism is a kind of formal discussion on any work of art. According to Aristotle, this is the standard of judging well, but according to Dryden, a kind of formal discussion on any literary, work, on any, text, right? Then Dr. Johnson says that criticism is the task of determining the principles of evaluating the merits and demerits of a work of art. It is the task of determining some principles to evaluate the merits and demerits of any work of art. Right? Then Thomas Carlyle, he says that criticism is a kind of interpretation and assessment. Criticism is a kind of interpretation and assessment. Now, one thing is very clear. On the basis of all these definitions which have been given by these masters, criticism is a kind of critical evaluation. Criticism is a kind of judgment. Criticism is a kind of, interpretation. Criticism is a kind of evaluation, right? Then you can say that criticism is not just about talking about the negative points of any book. It's not only about pinpointing the demerits of any book. No. In criticism, a critic has to include both the points. See, if you read any book, it may have both the points. It may have some positive points, it may have some negative points also. So criticism does not mean to pinpoint only the negative side. It does not mean to raise just negative aspects of that book. No, it means to talk about both the things. There may be certain positive points, there may be certain negative points. There may be certain merits and there may be certain demerits in any book. So criticism basically means to pinpoint both the things, to include both the aspects, positive as well as negative. Right? Now, a critic, he should be like a pathologist. How? Now, what is the task of a pathologist? A pathologist, he basically diagnoses the blood of patients without taking note of their caste, of their color, of their gender. In the same way, a critic should judge a book without taking note of the caste and color and religion of the author. What I am trying to say is that a critic should not be prejudiced. Say, for example, if you talk about Dr. Johnson, he has been called a great critic, but somehow he has been very prejudiced for some of the authors, specifically for Milton and for the author of, Tom Jones. Getting my point? I feel Shakespeare is the only author who has got some praise from the side of Dr. Johnson. Otherwise, Dr. Johnson criticized almost all the authors. So a critic should be above any kind of prejudice. Is that clear? So a critic must be like a pathologist. Right? Then Fry, Northrop Fry, he wrote a paper and the name of the paper is Archetypes of Literature. Archetypes of Literature. In that paper, he compares criticism with physics. Physics, a different subject in the science stream. So in that paper, he compares criticism, literary criticism with physics. Now, what happens in physics? Yes? Yes. See, as physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature and explains why and how they happen. In the same way, criticism tries to find the phenomena of, or criticism tries to explain the phenomena of literature. See, I'm just trying to simplify it. See, you can have so many things like in physics you just can say that if you take a hollow thing and if you throw it into any river, it will come on the surface, it will float. On the other hand, if there is any solid metal and if you throw it into the river or into any kind of pond, it will sink down. Why? At certain point, the milk starts coming out of the pot. Why? So as physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature and explains why and how they happen. Why does this milk, come out of the pot after some temperature? Or why does a hollow thing float on the surface of the water? And why does, a solid thing, sink? Getting my point? So as physics tries to find a system in the phenomena of nature and explains why and how they happen, in the same way, criticism also tries to find a system in the phenomena of literature. Or it tries to examine, a kind of system in the phenomena of literature. Right? So physics is somehow like, literary criticism. Or literary criticism is like, physics. Fine. Then there is a critic, J. E. Spingarn. Spingarn says that criticism raises three questions. Number one, what the author is trying to express. Number two, how the author becomes successful in expressing that idea. Number three, was the idea worth expression? I repeat, Spingarn says that criticism basically raises three questions. Number one, what the author is trying to express. Number two, how far the author has been successful in expressing that idea. Number three, was the idea worth expression? Was the idea worth expression? Right? Basically, serious discussion about the nature and function of criticism, it began with T.S. Eliot. And if you remember, T.S. Eliot wrote The Sacred Wood. It is a collection of some essays. So there he talks about the nature and function of criticism very seriously. And in the essays, Eliot says that criticism is basically, this is a kind of analysis and comparison. In criticism, there should be a kind of analysis and there should be a kind of comparison. Further, he says that criticism is not autotelic. Criticism is not autotelic. What does it mean? Having an end and purpose in itself. So criticism is not something which is having an end and purpose in itself. There is something beyond criticism also. There is something beyond criticism also. So criticism is not autotelic. Right? Let us talk about some more critics from the 20th century society. T.S. Eliot. About criticism, he says that criticism is a kind of rational analysis of any text or of any literary work or any work of art. Rational analysis. Right? Then there is a critic, he is basically a structuralist, Gerard Janet. Gerard Janet. Gerard Janet says that criticism is meta-literature. Literary criticism is meta-literature. What does it mean? Arola Barks. He says that criticism is meta-language. What is meta-literature? Yes. Gerard Janet, he says that criticism is meta-literature. It means it is a literature commenting on a literature. Say for example, let us talk about Hamlet. So what is written in Hamlet? That is a text. That is literature basically. Right? Then we have a number of critics on Hamlet. Wilson Knight, A.C. Bradley, they are the two famous critics. Then at the present time, you can have so many critics who have written so many things on Hamlet. Right? So whatever these critics have written, this is a comment on the literature which has already been written by William Shakespeare. That is in the form of Hamlet. So Hamlet, the text, is a piece of literature, right? And whatever criticism is on Hamlet, in relation to its dramatic failure, in relation to procrastination of Hamlet, in relation to madness of Hamlet, in relation to the fact whether Hamlet is the hero or villain, Claudius is the hero or villain, in relation to Gertrude, whether she was unfaithful to her husband or not, in relation to Ophelia. So we have so many criticism, we have so many critical papers on Hamlet the text. Right? So Gerard Janet says that criticism is meta literature. Means it is a literature commenting on a literature. Is that clear? Then Roland Barthes, he says that criticism is meta language. Again the same thing. It is a language commenting on a language. It is a language commenting on a language. See, the medium is language. Be it any drama, be it any poem, be it any novel, be it any short story, everywhere, the medium is language. Right? So, whatever language is written has been written in one text, that is the original work of the author. Then the criticism that is on this text, this is further, in the form of comments, in the form of criticism. Right? So Gerard Janet says that literary criticism is meta-literature, and Roland Barthes, he says that criticism is meta-language. It is a language commenting on a language. Is that clear? Then M.H. Abrams, he says that an artist is the god and a critic is the priest, and the task of this priest is to decipher the writings of God. Getting the point? Artist and critic. So M.H. Abrams says that the artist is the critic or God, and the critic is the priest, and the task of this priest is to decipher the writings of God. Right? Now try to understand how criticism is necessary. Derrida in one of his interviews said, he basically accepted this fact. He said that criticism is, more theoretical and more philosophical than literature itself. He admitted it in one of the interviews, Jacques Derrida. What did he say? He said that literary criticism is highly theoretical and it is more philosophical than literature in itself. And nowadays, literature is inside criticism. It is not outside criticism. Literature is inside criticism and criticism is inside literature. Now both are interrelated. Now literature, cannot be justified without criticism. Why? There is a simple fact, and the simple fact is that with the help of criticism you can evaluate the worth of a book. With the help of criticism you can evaluate the merits and demerits of any work of art. And anything that remains unexamined is useless. That is the need of criticism. If you don't apply criticism on any text, how can you come to know that this book is good? And how can you come to know that this book is bad? It's worth reading. It's not worth reading. So today criticism is in the text. It is not outside the text. Criticism is necessary. Why? Because with the help of criticism we can evaluate the real worth of any book. We can come to know about the merits and demerits of any book. Right? Now come to the point of literary theory. Number one, no theory is literary. I told you yesterday also. No theory is literary. Theory is basically a lens through which you can analyze a book from different perspectives or from different angles. So theory is, use it just like a lens. And with the help of this lens, you can analyze this book differently, from different perspective, from different angle. Say for example, we are 6 or 7 candidates here in this hall. So your thinking, naturally it would vary from my thinking. Mine may vary from her, hers from her. So if we are 7 persons here, we'll be giving 7 interpretations about one book. Right? If we are 7 persons here, our interpretations would vary. If I ask you to write 4 lines about it, so do you feel that your lines would be identical? Why?
Different.
You all have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 nose, 1 head, 2 legs, 10 fingers here, 10 fingers there. So biologically, almost you are structured in a similar way. So why then you think differently, you act differently, you react differently?
Different life experiences.
It means there is something inside the mind which forces us to act differently, to react differently, and to think differently. You bring 3 boys and you introduce them with a girl. The first boy, he may be very shy. I mean, he may not even gather the courage to talk to her. Right? The second boy, he may be a bit, brave. He may try to talk to the girl, but, even after much efforts, perhaps he will not be able to do that. And the third one, he may be very brave. He may ask the phone number of the girl. Hey, what are you doing this evening? Can we share the phone number? Can we have a cup of coffee tonight or this evening? So 3 boys meeting the same girl, but acting and reacting differently. Now here is no the difference of gender even. All the 3 are males. Right? 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 head, 2 legs, 2 hands. They are acting and reacting differently. It means there is something inside the mind which forces us to act and react differently. In psychoanalysis, you will come to know about it. The conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the unconscious mind. And then we have 3 psychic zones. The id, the ego, and the superego. The id, the ego, and the superego. Right? So there may be different interpretations basically. Fine. So theory is basically a lens, and through this lens you can have a look, or you can read a text differently. You can find different meanings in a text. You can analyze it from a different viewpoint, from a different angle, from a different perspective. In one line you just can say that theory is to find out the latest and new. Theory is, you just can say, exploring the latest and new. If you talk about queer theory nowadays, its essence is that heterosexuality is not the only normal sexuality. It means homosexuality is also normal. I very seriously feel that somehow this theory is, it is giving so many benefits. It is giving us so many interpretations, but at the same time, in some areas, it is distorting the face of literature. Yesterday I gave you the example of deceptions. The girl who was raped, in her case, deception was very clear. How come that the rapist has also been deceived? But the author has proved it. I can also prove it. If you apply psychoanalysis, you can come to the conclusion that it is not only the girl who has been deceived, it is the rapist also who has been deceived. It sounds very ironical that the rapist has also been deceived. So it has become possible only when we apply literary theory or when we apply theory. So again, theory is basically a lens through which you can have a look at a text from different perspectives. Now your perspective may be different from hers from hers. You all may have different perspectives. The idea of relativity, it works quite seriously in literature. What is ethical for you may not be ethical for me. What is good for you may not be good for me. Is that clear? Now come to theory. So when you talk about theory, is basically an extension of literary criticism. Literary criticism, it has undergone a journey, right? You begin it from the time of, Aristotle, then you come to the Middle Ages, Renaissance, and at the present time. At the present time, it has become a very part and parcel of, literary theory. Criticism has become a very part and, or you just can say that literary theory has become a part and parcel of literary criticism. Right? So here you can face a doubt, and the doubt is whether literary criticism is different from literary theory or not. Are they both separate fields of inquiry, or they both are same? See, if you talk about the word theory, it is coming from the word theoria. That means contemplation and speculation. I think speculation is fitter than contemplation. So the word theory, it is coming from the word theoria. That means contemplation and speculation. Right? Again the same thing, whether literary theory is different from literary criticism or not. Now one thing is very clear that all the literary critics have not been literary theorists. Clear? All the theorists have not been literary critics. There may be, few names only. Gerard Janet, he is a theorist, at the same time he is a critic also. Dryden has been a critic, but he has not been a theorist. Aristotle is an exception. He is a critic as well as a theorist. Right? Formalism, it basically began, you can find its roots in poetics. I'll talk about it later. Right? So when we analyze the question whether literary theory is different from literary criticism, there one thing is very clear, that all the theorists, all the literary theorists have not been literary critics. Some people feel that they both are same. Some people feel that literary theory is an extension of literary criticism. But there is a thin difference between the two. What is the difference? See, the difference is that literary criticism is the practical application of literary theory, and literary theory, on the other hand, is the philosophical discussion of the goals and methods of criticism. So one is the practical application of other, and the other is the philosophical discussion of the methods and goals of the first. Is it clear?
Yes.
Criticism is the practical application of theory, any kind of theory. When you analyze Hamlet when you analyze madness in Hamlet, so this is the practical application basically. Right? Say for example, there is a scene in Hamlet, the closet scene. So when he is going to meet his mother, And he had so many plans in his mind, how he will be rebuking her, how he will be making her realize of her sin that she committed by marrying for the second time. On the way, he finds that his uncle is busy in prayer. Right? Suddenly, he becomes active, and he utters the lines like, "Now might I do it, that now he is praying." So the first idea that enters his mind, it was like he would murder the uncle at the time of prayer. But suddenly the next idea enters his mind, and it forces him to feel that if he murders a man at the time of prayer, the man will be going to heaven. And he didn't want this man to go to heaven. This man was someone who spoiled the royal bed of Denmark, who trapped his mother. I mean, he's under this perception. According to Hamlet, this man, Claudius, he spoiled the royal bed of Denmark by marrying or by sleeping with his mother. So he wanted this man to go to hell, not to heaven. Practical application. Is that clear? You can apply criticism on the character of Gertrude, whether she was faithful to her husband or she was not faithful to her husband. How can you come to know about it? How can you find out the answer? Only when you apply criticism, only when you apply some practical approaches. So practically speaking, you can come to the conclusion that she was not unfaithful to her husband. Caroline Hilbrand, you can go through her essay written by, it is written about Gertrude specifically, and in that essay she is trying to defend the very character of Gertrude. Right? So, literary criticism, that is the practical application of theory. Theory, on the other hand, is the philosophical discussion of the goals and methods of literary criticism. But, as I told you yesterday also, the Johns Hopkins Guide to Theory and Criticism, it makes no difference between the two. This guide says that literary theory and literary criticism, they both are same. They are not separate or different fields of inquiry. Should I write the name? This is the Johns Hopkins Guide to Literary Theory and Criticism. This book makes no difference between literary theory and literary criticism. It means, according to the book, both are same. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now come to the point how criticism has seen a journey. Yesterday also we were talking about this fact that 30 years back, these theories were not the part of syllabus in any university. On the name of some critical approaches, there were some movements like imagism, existentialism, impressionism, like that. But now no subject can be called a complete subject without the inclusion of literary theories. So today theories have become a must. Because now you cannot read English literature in isolation. Today, the focus is on interdisciplinary approaches. And the NEP, it also demands the same thing. Right? Today it is not enough that you should have the knowledge of English only. No. You should have If you talk about English, then you should have the knowledge of the complete Bible. Is it or not?
Yes.
Okay. How many books are in the Bible? Ah, yes, 86.
So 66.
66. How many parts are there? Which one? A bit louder.
Old Testament and New Testament.
Okay. The Old Testament and the New Testament. How many books are in the Old Testament?
36 and 27.
Pardon?
So 36, 27 are there in the New Testament and
39.
39.
39 in the Old Testament and 27 in the New Testament. So the total number of books, that is 66. Right? And the two parts, when you talk about the complete Bible, it was not written by one person or two persons. It was written by some 40 people, and it took around 1600 years to write down the complete book. Right? The Old Testament, that is based on the Hebrew scriptures. The New Testament, that is based on the Greek and Christian scriptures. The first 5 books in the Old Testament, they are known as, see, you all are the students of English literature. And if you don't have that basic knowledge of the Bible, then this is something very unjustified from your side. Pentateuch. And in Hebrew, that is called Torah. Which are those first 5 books?
Genesis, Exodus.
Okay. Number 1, Genesis. Number 2, Exodus. Then Leviticus. Then Numbers. Then Deuteronomy. So the first 5 books of the Old Testament, they are known as Pentateuch or Torah. Pentateuch in the Greek language, Torah in the Hebrew language. Right? So today, it can be a topic, impact of the Bible on English literature. It can be a very good PhD topic. Impact of the Bible on English literature. Now you can specify it. You try to see which are the authors who have been impacted by the Bible. You can work on it. It can be very, very good, topic for PhD. So today, literature has become interdisciplinary. So it's not enough that you have the knowledge of Shakespeare, Shelley, Keats, Byron, and literary theory. No, you need to have the knowledge of sociology, little bit. You need to have the knowledge of economics, little bit. And that has been the effort and that has been the demand of the NEP at the present time. Right? So literary criticism, it has seen a journey. How? See, literary theory, literary criticism and literature. When you talk about literature, it is simply language charged with meaning up to the utmost possible degree. Right? You can define literature in so many ways. But don't say that this is the mirror of society. This is something which you read in the 8th class. Now forget about it. It is the mirror of society, but use some standard words. Right? So you can define literature in so many ways. It's up to you. Simply speaking, great literature is simply language charged with meaning up to the utmost possible degree. Ezra Pound basically said so. To simplify, the moment you charge language with meaning, it becomes literature. So here there may be one more question. What is the difference between day-to-day language and literary language? How can you turn the day-to-day language into literary language? Medium is language everywhere. Daily you talk to your parents, to your friends, to your classmates. So the words that you use while talking to your friends, to your classmates, to your parents and to your friends, do you feel that, this is literary conversation? No. What then turns this conversation into literary conversation? That is the point. Getting the point? So this is something which we'll be talking about while talking about formalism. There is a difference between day-to-day language and literary language. At both the places, the medium is language, but in day-to-day language, this is language only. Here, in literary conversation, this is language plus. Now, this plus is something that is giving a kind of literariness to language. That is known as poetics also. That is known as literature most also. Is that clear?
Yes.
So, great literature is simply language charged with meaning up to the utmost possible degree. Great literature, it is not for one age but for all the ages. It is not for one society but for all the societies. So today you cannot say that Shakespeare is British only. No, he's a great person and he belongs to the entire cosmos. So great literature, it belongs to all the nations, it belongs to all the societies. And it basically deals with some human passions like love, hatred, ambition, jealousy, and so many desires. And these human passions, they remain same in all the ages. Do you agree with me or not? Around 5400 years back, the Troy was fought for a lady. So don't you feel that the wars are even today fought for ladies? Right? Earlier the wars were fought for empires. Now the empires have been replaced by property, plot. 100 गज के प्लॉट के ऊपर मर्डर हो जाते हैं. Right? What Clytemnestra did? Don't you feel that it's an ongoing process even today? Who was Clytemnestra? Yes. 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 Spectacled girl. Who was Clytemnestra? Yes. Yes. She was the wife of Agamemnon. Right? And in the absence of Agamemnon, she developed relationship with Aegisthus. And when Agamemnon came back, after achieving victory over Troy, after burning Troy, she, with the help of her paramour, her lover, murdered Agamemnon. So don't you feel that husbands are killed even today by wives?
So, but boys, the guys are also killing, they are even keeping the body in the fridge inside. The things are changing.
No, I'm not saying that it's only the females who are killing the males. I'm not trying to say that only wives are killing husbands. Husbands are also killing wives. What I'm trying to say is that, this is not something new. It has been taking place right from the beginning of the civilization. Who is the first murderer in the history of Cain? He murdered his own brother. So it is happening even today. What Claudius did, it was not something new. And what is happening at the present time, this is not something new. I hope you are getting my point, what I am trying to explain to you people. Great literature deals with human passions like love, hatred, ambition, jealousy. These human passions remain same in all the ages. Love was there in the beginning of the civilization. Adam, he left heaven just because of Eve. Just because of Eve. Had he wanted, he could have lived in heaven. But he also ate the fruit because he wanted to live with that Eve, who was too beautiful. T-double-O, too beautiful. Beautiful to the point of danger. Fine. So love, that was in the beginning of the creation. Murders, hatred, ambition, over-ambition. So literature basically deals with human passions, and human passions remain same in all the ages. But the world keeps changing. The atmosphere keeps changing. Our attitudes change. Our traditions change. Our eating habits change. Our ways of life, these are changing. Everything is changing. Everything is changing. Our thinking pattern, it is changing. Our traditions are changing. Our habits, eating habits, dressing habits, thinking perceptions are changing. Today there is no concept of morality. Everything has become normal today. Right? There was a time 40 years back when no male of the house allowed any female to go outside the home. He used to take it like a black spot on his personality. That a female of a family should not work outside the home. And now males are promoting their wives, their sisters to go outside the home to work for job. Getting my point?
Yes.
So attitudes are changing, thinking pattern is changing, everything is changing. We change the world. We change the world and the world changes us. We change the words and the words change us. Actions and reactions are equal and opposite. Okay? We are playing with nature. Nature is also playing with us. We are intruding in the area of nature. In return, what the nature is doing, it is coming out in the form of flood and so many things, earthquake, so many things. So we change the world changes us. We change the words and the words change us. It simply means that everything undergoes a kind of change. Change is the rule of nature. Anything that does not change becomes dead. Right? So when everything is changing, literature is also changing. The paradigms of literature are also undergoing a kind of change. Literary thinking is changing. Now you can find, abusive language in modern literature. 30 years back it was not possible. 30 years back there used to be a parameter, there used to be a line. And there was a strict warning that this is the line which should not be crossed. Are you getting the point?
Yes, sir.
You try to have a look at the novels which are written at the present time. Abusive language, obscene language. Everything you can find. Right? Even, you can find this change in the behavior of females. 40 years, 30, even 20 years back. I mean, there could have been no women using abusive language. Now it's very common. And you see some movies on Netflix and Amazon. What kind of language is being used there? Not only males, females. Do you see such shows? I mean, so many movies are there which you cannot see with your family members. So change is inevitable. Today I cannot come wearing dhoti and kurta. If I come, then I'll be mocked at by you. I may be mocked at by you. Maybe and maybe not. Right? So everything is changing. We change the world changes us. We change the words, and the words change us. Now this change can be seen through three waves. The first one is the agrarian revolution. The second one is the industrial revolution. And the third one is the electronic or microchip revolution. The electronic or microchip revolution. Right? Now try to understand how this change has taken place in the society also. This change has become a part and parcel of the society also. See, the first one is the agrarian revolution. See, there was a time when life was family centered, village centered, and community centered. Life was rural. 90% people, they used to live in the villages. Even today, I think 70% people live in the villages. Right? But this is, in the end of the 19th century. 1860, 70 onwards. Or before 19th century. Right? So when you talk about the agrarian revolution, you just can say that there was a time when life was community-centered, village-centered, and family-centered. Life was rural. And feudalism, it was the accepted norm of the society. Even today you can see in the old movies. In every family there used to be the head, the patriarch. In every village there used to be a pradhan or sarpanch. In every community there used to be a head. So life was family-centered, village-centered, and community-centered. It was rural. And feudalism, it was the accepted norm of the society. In every village, there used to be a landlord, and the rest of the people, they were taken like his people, his praja. And they basically remained dependent on the mercy of this jamidar or thakur or whatever you call it. Fine, this was the first phase. Second one is the industrial revolution. Right? It happened due to some technological and scientific development. With technological and scientific development, so many mills and factories were established. And these mills and factories were established in the urban areas. So what happened? People started moving to the urban areas. Right? So this was the time of industrial revolution, and this industrial revolution, it resulted in industrialization, commercialization, and urbanization. Life became migrative because people started migrating towards the cities. At the same time, it became mechanical because people started using machines also. One more thing took place. Some institutions like offices came into entity. One more thing took place. The group of powerful people, it started dominating the weaker people on the name of universalization. Group is, it has been right from the beginning of creation. The group of the powerful people, it started dominating the group of the weaker people. Why? On the name of universalization. Even today you can terrify someone on the name of God and religion. What I feel about the origin of religion is that, you know how religion came into entity?
When people wanted to dominate the weaker sections, I think that is the time when religious came.
Yes. One day, a wise man met a simpleton. Religion came into entity. Because that wise man understood that with the help of religion, he would be able to dominate this man. He would be able to terrify this man and his community. Religion is what? A means to terrify, to dominate. Right? So, offices came into entity. And the group of powerful people, it started dominating the group of the weaker people on the name of universalization. Now the third one is the electronic revolution or the microchip revolution. With it, robots and computers came into entity. So with the arrival of robots and computers, people started getting more and more time for self-articulation and for creative activity and creative thinking. Because the work of 100 people was now being done by just one machine. Even you can say that the work of 1,000 people, it was being done by one machine, and that's why the Luddite movement came into entity. If you remember, the Luddite movement started by John Ludd. आप लोग पढ़ते नहीं हो क्या लिटरेचर? जब कोई बुक पढ़ते हो तो डोंट यू ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट द कॉन्टेक्स्ट ऑफ द बुक, हिस्टोरिकल कॉन्टेक्स्ट, सोशल कॉन्टेक्स्ट, or simply you just make a reading of the book? That is why historical criticism is necessary. In historical criticism, a text is analyzed, or you just can say the origin of the text is analyzed in order to understand the time behind it, in order to understand the factors behind it, in order to understand the world behind it. And the book is analyzed in the light of social factors, political factors, and historical milieu. How can you understand the books of Dickens if you don't understand the very condition of England at that time? So historical milieu or historical conditions, they are to be taken into consideration if you really want to analyze any book seriously. Clear? Anyways, so what happened during this microchip revolution? Robots and computers came into entity. Because science and technology developed more and more, and robots and computers came into entity. So with their arrival, life became more mechanical, and people started getting more and more time for self-articulation and for creative and critical thinking. Right? Now, due to this electronic revolution, home became the office. Work from home, that you call it. This home became the office. One more thing took place. Women started getting equality. They started going to the offices. And you can find this beautiful, irritating phenomenon in look back in it. Jimmy's problem is not that nothing is going well in his life. His problem is also that now his wife is reacting, not through the words, but through the silence that becomes a great weapon in her hands. Fine. See, this was the time when it was said that the white man was not able to take or to carry the burden of the colonized world. Everything was scattering from its hands. Side by side, female, they also started going to the offices with a suitcase in their hands. The white man was not in this favor, but he was helpless and helpless. He could not have done anything. He was standing helplessly and hopelessly. And he was looking back at everything in anger. Because this was the only thing he could have done. Right? So, women started getting equality. Right? Then you can say that life became global. And this globalization, specifically by the West, this globalization was presented as an antidote to all the problems, as a solution to all the problems. Remember the time of 1930s and 40s basically, between the First World War and the Second World War. This was the time, two forces were on their peak. Nazism, started by Hitler, and fascism, started by Mussolini. Right? And in reaction to these two forces, communism, a communist party came into entity, because at that time also this communism was supposed to be an antidote to these evils like Nazism and fascism. In the same way, during the third wave, this globalization, it was presented like an antidote to all the problems, means it was presented like a solution to all the problems. And today it has become a solution to all the problems, isn't it? Today we are living in a global world. Within 24 hours you can go anywhere. You can be connected with anyone. You can talk to anyone face to face. So the world has become like an umbrella and we all are under it. So we have seen how the change has been taking place in continuity. Again, this change is inevitable. This change has taken place in the society, in rituals, in customs, in traditions. So when everything is changing, literature is also changing. So this theory or this criticism, such things have also seen a kind of change. And this change is from, author-oriented approaches to reader-oriented approaches to context-oriented approaches to text-oriented approaches. So this theory, what you call criticism, if you believe in the words of the Johns Hopkins Guide to Theory and Criticism, it has also seen a journey. It is changing from author-oriented approaches to reader-oriented approaches, then context, then text. So when you talk about the author-oriented approaches, here we have only two approaches. Which one? Classicism and humanism. Classicism, I hope you all know. What is humanism? That's why, classroom lectures are very mandatory, very necessary. Classroom lectures are very fruitful. Come on, classicism. Everything, whatever has been written by the ancient masters. Right? I'm not going into the depth of classicism and romanticism. Okay, how can you define romanticism?
Praise of nature.
Huh?
texts that were written in the praise of nature.
Only.
So mostly that showcases the
Who
beauty.
can give me the best answer within 2 lines? Only.
Finding God in
Please
nature.
don't talk about love, don't talk about beauty, don't talk about nature, don't talk about superstitious elements. Give me something new. In fact, that is the essence of romanticism. Come on. Now you are disappointing. You are, in fact, you are diabolically assassinating the expectations of a teacher. Are you?
Sir, exploration. A lot of writers in romanticism showcases their ability to just go into nature and experience it or explore it.
These are subparts basically. The essence is that, classicism, you just can say obeying rules and regulations.
Yes,
And what may be opposite to it?
to not be bound by that.
Violation of rules and regulations. Right? That's why we have the terms classical comedy and romantic comedy, classical tragedy and romantic tragedy. Classical tragedy that follows the rules and regulations set up by the ancient masters,
Yes.
like following the three unities, non-mingling of tragedy with comedy, right?
Yes.
And Marlowean tragedies, they are called romantic tragedies because Christopher Marlowe never follows the rules and regulations set up by the ancient classical masters. No unity of time is there. No unity of place is there in Dr. Faustus, even in the tragedies of William Shakespeare. And Marlowe is the first one, or he can be called a pioneer of romantic tragedy. Fine. He is responsible for the transition of tragedy from classicism to romanticism. He wrote before William Shakespeare. Shakespeare somehow followed Christopher Marlowe. Right? That's why it is said that had there been no Christopher Marlowe, there would have been no William Shakespeare. It simply means that whatever Shakespeare wrote, for it, the platform was prepared by Christopher Marlowe. Be the matter of the blank verse, be the matter of writing romantic tragedies. So romanticism, okay, it is about nature, it's about beauty, it's about love. But if you include such things in your answer at the first hand, then you are illiterate. The first thing is violation. Violation of rules and regulations. Is that clear? In romantic sense, even infidelity is not a crime. I hope you understand what I am trying to say.
Yes.
Sorry? I'm not able to hear you.
He's saying it depends upon imagination.
Romanticism. Imagination is needed everywhere. So do you feel that there is no imagination in the rape of the lock? These are the perceptions basically. I mean, when you draw a line between the two things, only then you can see. Otherwise, imagination is needed everywhere. Right? Broadly speaking, you just can say that up to the middle of the 17th century, rationality was there and logic was there in literature. But after the first half of the 18th century, this rationality and this logic, such things were gradually being replaced by emotions and feelings and imagination. Imagination is something which you can find anywhere. So don't you find imagination in the plays of Marlowe? Don't you find imagination in the plays of William Shakespeare? And don't you find imagination in Alexander Pope or Dryden? Everywhere you have imagination. Imagination is a very part and parcel of any kind of creativity. Is that clear? So, should I leave or?
Please.
Huh? थके नहीं? So when you talk about author-oriented approaches, we have classicism and humanism. See, what is humanism? What happened during the Middle Ages? Middle Ages are called the Dark Ages. Why? Because science was not there, technology was not there. The people were guided by the Bible only. The Bible was everything to them. Right? They could not have crossed the line drawn by the Bible. The Bible says that the sun moves around the earth. And this idea you can find even one or two poems of John Donne also. The sun rising, where he shows that the sun is moving around the earth. And Galileo and who was the other person? Copernicus. Yeah. They proved scientifically that this is not the sun that moves around the earth, rather this is the earth that moves around the sun. And you know what happened with them?
Skill.
Why?
They could not
Because they said something that was against the Bible. Right? So humanism, you just can say it was a cultural movement that emerged during the Renaissance. What was the Renaissance? It was a kind of reawakening of knowledge and everything, reawakening of human minds from the long sleep of Middle Dark Ages into the modern ages. Chaucer you can call modern in comparison to the Middle Ages. Is that clear? So humanism, it was a cultural movement which emerged during the Renaissance period, and it basically gave importance to human nature rather than divine and superstitious elements. And this movement basically provided a kind of transition that was from medieval scholasticism to Greek thoughts. Renaissance was basically a reawakening of human minds going towards the Greek thoughts, because Greek literature, Greek ideas were reinterpreted in new light. Is that clear? So humanism, it basically focused on human nature more than on superstition and divine elements, right? And it provided a transition from medieval scholasticism to Greek thoughts and ideas. Medieval scholasticism. I hope you are familiar with scholastic philosophy. Do you? Okay, then affects metaphysics. What does it mean? Then affects metaphysics. Who said so? And what does it mean? See, then uses the terminology which is used by scholastic philosophers. And who are the scholastic philosophers? Are Greek and medieval philosophers. Plato is there, Aristotle is there, Ptolemy is there, Pythagoras is there. So many philosophers. Try to have a look at the poems of John Donne. Recurrently he talks about spheres, sun, semi-spheres, this one and that one. Is that clear? So humanism is clear? So it basically provided a scientific out. Right? Then if you talk about reader-oriented approaches, then we have reader-response theory. Context-oriented approaches, we have so many, like feminism, psychoanalysis, Marxism, historicism, new historicism, cultural studies, and myth criticism. Right? And when you talk about text-oriented approaches, then we have practical criticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, new criticism, formalism, deconstruction, and rhetorics. Is that clear? So, this is how, you know, criticism has seen a picture. I hope it is clear to you. Anything you want to know?
So apart from this,
Sorry?
so not from this, apart from this thing, the synopsis thing I asked, not from this lecture.
Synopsis. अभी to do one thing, you can arrange an online class tomorrow. And I'll take it from the department. Zoom पर ले लेना. वैसे तो had it been face to face then much better. But it needs, I think, 30 more minutes.
So we can do.
Well, how selfish you people are. You are thinking only about yourselves. What about this entity which is standing here? Anyways, within 5 or 10 minutes. See, when you talk about a synopsis is basically this is the plan of action that you will be applying while doing your research work. Before synopsis, you need to select a topic for your PhD. Is that clear?
Yes.
It's up to you. You can choose it according to your own taste. I mean, you may be interested in British fiction, you may be interested in Indian literature, you may be interested in some sociological issues, some historical issues, some political issues. It's up to you. So you enter different areas. It may be Canadian literature, it may be British, it may be Caribbean, it may be Indian, it may be American. Up to you, right? Regarding the topic, don't go for stereotyped topics. Try to find out something new. Something new. And better if you take up some comparative or interdisciplinary topic. Right? And if you give me some time, one day we can talk about different topics also. I can explore some topics before you and some possible areas where you can work. Right? Nowadays, pandemic, this is the hot topic. You can work on different pandemic novels. Pandemic novels means based on pandemic, basically, where pandemic is the main theme, like Camus. Fine? Okay. So once the task of, selecting your PhD topic is over, then you come to the synopsis. Remember that synopsis is always tentative, right? Initially, this is hypothetical, means this is your plan and you are supposed to work according to this plan, right? At the time of the submission of your thesis, you need to resubmit a fresh synopsis. Clear? One important thing is that, once you select a topic and it has been cleared by the RDC, not by the DRC. The RDC, Research Development Committee. So once it has been cleared by the RDC, there can be no change in the title. You can make changes inside the thesis or in the synopsis, but you cannot touch the title, not even, any article if by chance you have put it wrongly. Getting the point?
Yes, sir.
You can increase the number of books, you can decrease the number of books, you can increase the number of chapters, you can decrease the number of chapters. So you cannot touch the title, otherwise you can do anything. You are free for that. Right? चल रहा है?
ये तो ऑफ है.
Off है?
वो on.
So, This is basically a plan of action, means what you are supposed to do, what you will be doing in your research work. So synopsis you can divide in some particular headings, like introduction, introduction. Say for example, you give me one topic, one PhD topic. Okay, let it be a comparative study of the select novels of Hardy and Dickens through the lens of Marxism. Suppose this is your PhD topic, right? So here you have to prepare your plan of action, means what you are supposed to do in your thesis. So first, you need to give the heading introduction. Here you are supposed to write about the authors, the two authors. And you need to establish them as authors of good reputation. Right? Little bit you can talk about the title that you'll be working on in your thesis. Right? The second one is importance of the topic, and this is very crucial. Or on number 2 you can take review of literature. Review of literature. So what you have to do in review of literature? Basically you have to find out criticism on Hardy and Dickens. I mean, what has been written on those novels which you are also taking for your research work. Specifically, in the area of Marxism. Specifically while applying Marxism on the text of Hardy and Dickens. So review of literature is nothing. It is written just to see how much work has already been done on any author. That is the only purpose of review of literature. So that there should be no repetition. Clear? Then the third heading is importance and justification. Importance and justification. You can take it in one heading and you can make two separate headings of these two. Nowadays, there are strict instructions from the side of different authorities of the universities that a PhD work, it should have something additional. Additional means, it should not be a repetition of previous research works. There should be something additional in it. There should be something new in it. And there should be something which must be beneficial for the research communities. Say for example, if you complete your thesis, so in your thesis you will have to justify the point, or you will have to tell about the fact that your thesis is new from this viewpoint, and this point can be very beneficial for the research communities. Okay, what are the findings of your thesis? Suppose if you are applying Marxism on Hardy and Dickens, so this is not something which you will be working for the very first time. No, there could have been so many theses on it or on this area. Maybe not the same topic, but related topic. So how can you say that your thesis is different from earlier thesis? What is new in it? What is the different viewpoint in your thesis? How whatever you have written is going to be beneficial for the research communities? Clear? That is the importance. Now justification. Justification is basically you have to tell how this topic is crucial at the present time, Or what is the relevance of this topic at the present time? What may be the relevance of any topic on Marxism at the present time? Marxism is, it talks about two sections, the proletarian society and the bourgeois society. It's very relevant at the present time.
Yes, sir, because of the tax, middle class pays 30% tax.
Not only in India, but across the globe, the rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer. What the government is trying to do, what people are trying to do, what economists are trying to do, what the Reserve Bank of India and the Reserve Banks of different nations are trying to do to bridge this gap. Getting my point? So it's a major problem at the present time. Why money should be reserved only to some people? 2% people or 3% people, I'm not accurate about the data. I think 3 or 4% people in India, they are having more money than the rest of the 94 or 95% people in India. It is unimaginable. Is it or not? So there is a huge gap. How to bridge it? So what is the significance of your thesis? Are you suggesting something? Say for example, if you go through the novels of Premchand, Premchand basically suggested an idea. What was the idea? Anyone who has gone through the novels of Premchand? Premchand, he gave a very simple idea. The idea is that the rich people, they must come forward to help the poor people. Now, there can be no policy from the side of the government to snatch money from the rich people. If the rich people are earning, they are earning by their hard work. Right? So the government has no right to snatch their money and give it to poor people. I mean, this is the government and there can be no Robin Hood style. The government cannot be Robin Hood. Otherwise, there will be anarchy. So the rich people, they must come forward. They must help the poor people, not by giving money, but by taking them inside the system of establishing some small scale industry. Say for example, within 10 or 15 lakh rupees, you can begin a small scale industry. छोटा मोटा एक कोई काम अपना शुरू कर सकते हो, जैसे कागज के कप बनाने का या कुछ भी. Go through Premchand and he has given very logical ideas. So if you have any idea like that, how to bridge this gap, you include it in your thesis and it will be original. So, introduction, then you have to give review of literature, then the significance, importance of your topic, justification of your topic, right? Then purpose of study, you can take it. एक ही बात है वैसे, purpose of study. What is the purpose of your study? Why do you want to take this particular topic? What is your intention? Then one point would be chapter division. Here you will be dividing your thesis into different chapters. In chapter division, 2 chapters are mandatory, rather 3. Number 1, introduction, and the last chapter, that of conclusion, and the second chapter, review of literature, is a must nowadays. Right? So these 3 chapters are mandatory, or you can make review of literature a part of introduction also, within 8 to 7 or 10 pages. Clear? Then in between, you have to give the names of the chapters. It's up to you how many works you are taking. So on the basis of those works undertaken, you can name the chapters, but the names of the chapters should be eye-catching. Right? Then select bibliography. What method research methodology, not bibliography, research methodology. So one heading will be research methodology. One heading will be research methodology. We can do with it, I think.
कोड देना पड़ेगा इसमें।
हाँ?
अगर पहले से कोई कोड है देन ये काम करेगा। सर वहाँ पे वो create one लिखा हुआ है उस पर क्लिक करना पड़ेगा।
Okay.
Don't have a meeting links like create.
So what I am supposed to do to go back to
सर
the home screen?
by continuing से जस्ट ऊपर लिखा हुआ है।
Come here and do it. Okay. Right. So you can give the heading research methodology. So what kind of research methodology you will be using in your thesis? And in the end you can give conclusion. So just 7 or 8 headings you have to give in your synopsis, and you have to fill just 10 to 15 pages. And in the end you have to give a select bibliography. Select bibliography, I mean the original works of the authors you will be working on, and in the secondary sources, some critical books on the authors you will be working on. So this is it. In more detail, we can talk some other. Anything else?
So, tomorrow I have to arrange a Google Meet or something, or we'll be meeting next week.
No. We have enough time. Nowhere the course has started yet. So we are the only people, the only strangers who are dealing with the classes. The university has also given the time of 4 months. This is up to 15th of November. What I feel is that nowadays the weather is not suitable for people to come to the department. It's very hot outside. So I feel that in September, some students would love to come to the department for the classes. Meanwhile, we can have just 1 or 2 classes in a week, enough. Right? Say for example, in one lecture you can discuss about dissertation, in one lecture you can discuss about how to prepare a synopsis, in one lecture you can discuss about how to write the thesis. Right? So, enough time. So the speed with which I have taught you today, with this speed I think I will finish your theories within 20 or 25 lectures. So let us go slowly, and if you have some problems, please let me know. Let it be a two-sided approach, reciprocal. Anything else? Are you getting whatever I am teaching to you people? Sure. Thank you.
And for